I'm still working on my gator sweater series and I'm almost done, but I wanted to take a step and a moment to show you what I mean by how seams are done with mattress stitch. I did a video of me seaming the sleeve into the armhole using mattress stitch, and it was really dark yarn and it was really hard even for me to see while I was doing it. So I decided to take these swatches and take a moment to do some tutorials. We've got side to side, 2 pieces of vertical knitting just seamed right there. We've got cast on or bound off edge to cast on or bound off edge. And we've got cast on or bound off edge to a vertical edge. Now I want to show what happens when you're seaming 2 pieces that don't perfectly line up, whether it's the size of the piece or the row count or something like that. On this piece I have 20 rows. On this piece I have 25 rows. They were knit with the same size needle, but they're different gauges of yarn, so there's some difference there as well. I'm going to use a contrasting yarn and a tapestry needle. You can either use straight or bent. And for this kind of mismatch, it may be extra helpful to use these little wonder clips. And what you do is you just piece the edges together, your starting point to your starting point, your middle to your middle. This will help you line things up so that you can fudge accurately. You are going to be working on the front side of the garment. I know that's a little bit different for people who are used to sewing garments, but when you're seaming sweaters using mattress stitch, it can be really helpful and give you a nice, clean, professional look if you're working from the front side. What happens is these edge stitches just roll into the back. We are working 2 stitches in, picking up the ladders between the stitches as I showed in the first video on this topic. 2 stitches in, picking up the ladders. When you have extra stitches somewhere, you're just going to skip them every now and then. Sometimes this happens when you're knitting a sweater and the pattern says knit until the piece measures 10 inches. And you're not tracking your rows and you're measuring 10 inches. And then you knit the next piece and it says 10 inches and your row gauge changes. It happens all the time. It happens to all of us. It's totally normal. You can try to push some of your extra stitches to a place that's less noticeable, like the underarm. But if it's possible, it's really good to push those extra stitches all along the whole garment, and it's really not going to be noticeable because knitting is stretchy. So occasionally, every 2 or 3 rows, I'm just skipping 1 ladder and going on to the next one on the piece that has too many stitches. And as I come to these clips, I'm making sure that things are lining up. If something doesn't line up, it's really easy to pull this out. You just pull really hard and you start over. I showed how to do that in the first video in this series, if you want to go back and reference that. After a few stitches, I'm going to pull it tight. That clip is in my way now, so I'm going to get rid of that. And as I come to this ending part, I really want to make sure everything's lining up really nicely, and that way nobody will ever know that we made a mistake. So there you have it, seaming mismatched stitches. As with the other ones, I'm going to go and whip stitch these tails in place. In my next video and the last video in this little mini series, we're going to do angled stitch and seeing where your increases and decreases are, because we've been talking about staying in the same column of stitches, but what do you do when that's not a straight line or that changes because of increases and decreases? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in that next video.